Good morning. Can you hear me okay? Okay. Welcome to the First Parish Church of Stone Acton, a welcoming and spiritual community. My name is June McKnight and I serve as chair of the worship committee. For those visiting FPC for the first time, we welcome you. Please let us know you are here by filling out one of our visitor information cards in the pews and hand it to an usher or drop it in the plate. Our minister, staff and board are listed on the front of the order of service. Please feel free to ask me or any of these people for more information. If you would like a large print hymnal or an assisted listening device, please ask our ushers. Our assisted listening devices are small radios. Anyone is welcome to use one of these to listen to the service from another space in or around our building. Nursery care is available during the service. For K through 5 children, they usually attend the first part of the service and then leave for classes. Once a month we have a children's chapel where children begin their time in the vestry. Further information, for further information, see the bulletin or ask our religious education director. After the service, please join us for coffee and conversation in our fellowship hall, which is down the stairs or elevator at the other end of the building, or in a breakout room if you're joining us online. I'd like to draw your attention to the announcements in our order of service. And there is one that, an additional one, after you get your coffee today, please join us in the front yard to rake up and move the leaves. And now I'd like to introduce Susan Avery.
Good morning. I am here to give the traditional stewardship plea for you to open your wallets and be generous with the church. So, as most of you know, next spring I am leaving this area and thus FPC and moving to Jersey City, New Jersey, to get used to rolling that off my tongue, where my daughter Emily lives. I am looking at how to reconstruct my life in this new place, and critical to that is to replace what it is that FPC brings me. Quite a challenge, which I have utterly failed at so far. But most important is the community of people I have found here, all of you. What a joy to be surrounded by people with a similar worldview. And with these people, the opportunity to share so many social justice activities. The Peace Vigil, rallies, parades, food, and gift drives. And we are all given so many opportunities to learn more. From early workshops I participated in on racial justice that taught me that my parents were perhaps responsible for the redlining. That was quite a shock. And the recent Trans 101 workshop, where I also learned a lot. And what a joy it is for me to be part of the musical life of this church, singing in the choir and playing various instruments. More importantly, perhaps, the community it provided, it was the choir that drew me into FPC initially and motivated me to become more involved with this community. Also very important, and the primary reason I lost my place. The primary reason we wanted to join a church in the first place, we found a well-developed and welcoming RE program for our children. What's more, that community welcomed them. When we were church shopping, the preschool class that my four-year-old landed in initially was not welcoming to her. On our way home, she was adamant that we not return. When we arrived at FPC, her teacher welcomed her with open arms, making her a felt name tag immediately. This time, our daughter said she was happy to return, and here I still am. When our third daughter, Xiaowen, joined our family as a 6-year-old from China, she had limited knowledge of English and limited awareness of expected American 6-year-old behavior. You were all amazingly accepting of her, taking her as she was and giving her the space and time to adjust. Perhaps as a result, we specified members of this community as temporary guardians for our kids, should something have happened to us. Even today, all three having flown the coop, they have maintained relationships with some of the adults they met here. Thank you for that. I want to leave you with the fundamental reason I give generously to this church. I heard this first from Greg Jones when he stood up here in my place many years ago. He related how important FPC was for him when he was going through a hard time, and how he wanted to make sure it was available to others who needed it in their future. Greg, I have carried on your attention, and I hope some of you will continue to do so. Thank you.
Good morning. Good morning. So today is an intergenerational service, and Rayla and I brainstormed today about where could be a special place for the kids to sit in the service and have activities to do. And I thought, you know what? We have this sort of box right up here, right in front. What if we gave the kids the pulpit area to play in during the service, and we preached from the floor? So we have pillows and activities set up in this pulpit area. Chris, if you could go turn off the microphone up there. I invite you to come forward. During our first song is a good time to come forward and hang out and play in the pulpit during the service, okay? All right. I should also say, kids, no playing with the organ, okay? I think it is on, so. No?
Come in exactly as you are. Come in with your stories, your questions, your gratitude, your grief. Come in remembering the land that holds us and the peoples whose care made life possible here. Come in ready to practice welcome, the kind that opens our hearts as well as our doors. Let us gather, let us breathe in together, let us worship.
Trek, could you stay and help me light the chalice, please? Thank you. These chalice lighting words are called The Great Turning by Lisa Garcia Sampson. In these wild, historic, and uncertain times, we gather to remember who we are, who we belong to, and what we are called to do. As we light this chalice, we kindle the spirit of the Great Turning, the movement for justice alive in this nation today. May we feel it in our bones, and in the stillness of this hour, or lack of stillness in this hour, may we sense it calling our name. Oh, yeah. I'm talking, so yeah. So please rise, embody your spirit, and join in our opening hymn, number 38, Morning Has Broken. Please join me now in the Covenant affirmation. We will be using different words for the affirmation, so look at them in your bulletins or up on the screens, but to the same tune.
Love is the spirit of this church, and service is law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another.
So recently, as part of our talks about merging with the Marlborough-Hudson congregation, I've been learning about our shared history. So this made me curious about my own family history and how it fits into these stories. So when Reverend Cindy asked me to do the land acknowledgement today, I thought I'd share some of these stories with you. I learned that one of my ancestors was a doctor in the American Revolution. Another, my 9th great-grandfather, David, came here with his parents in 1637 from England. He worked as a surveyor for the colonial army, he was a lawyer, and he was the first subscriber when they wanted to build a new meeting house in Cambridge Farms, which is now called Lexington. Interesting stuff. Around the same time, many of my other ancestors live in Salem. Anyone know something that happened in Salem in 1692? Some were on the juries during the witch trials. One was actually foreman of one of the juries, while others were among the accused. 2 of them stand out. My 9th great aunt Dorcas, who confessed and therefore survived, and then my 10th great uncle John Proctor, who was convicted and hanged on a spot that's now called Proctor's Ledge. He later became the lead character in The Crucible, the play by Arthur Miller, and was played by Daniel Day-Lewis in the 1996 movie version. It's fascinating and definitely surreal to learn these stories about my family. There's a lot here to celebrate, but there's also a lot here that's very upsetting. As I kept searching, I found more than 70 direct ancestors who came from England before 1640, buying land, building homes, and starting new lives. But I think we need to look at what buying land really meant back then. The Wampanoag, Massachusetts, and Nipmuc peoples cared for their land for many thousands of years through treaties that balanced shared use of land and resources. Newcomers would be welcomed if they respected the local leaders and their customs. The gifts mentioned in old deeds with English settlers, a knife, a coat, or a hatchet, were not payments for land, but they were symbols of friendship and respect. They represented a promise to be good neighbors and to listen to their local sachem. My ancestors broke that promise. They fenced off shared fields for private farms and let their cattle trample native crops. When the Wampanoag, Massachusetts, and Nipmuc peoples objected, the English colonists organized armies to force them off their homes, put them into prison, or deport them, selling them into slavery in distant countries. My ancestors were members of those armies and could very likely have participated in these acts. This is what it means to say that the land was stolen. It wasn't a single act, it was a series of choices made by families like mine. I'm really sad about this part of my family's story, and I'm angry about it too. But I'm sharing it today not out of guilt, but out of love and responsibility. For a long time, I looked away because it was easier. That was the easier choice. And for a long time, our communities did the same thing. But healing begins when we tell the truth. Recently, I read Our Beloved Kin by Lisa Brooks. It's a new history of Metacomets or King Philip's War that incorporates Wampanoag sources for the first time. It uncovers a complex picture of war, captivity, and native resistance in the stories of Weetamoo, a powerful and influential female Wampanoag sachem, and Metacomet, who the English called King Philip. It gives important context to the origins of our FPC community in the 17th century. When I shared the book with our FPC forum, I checked a few hours later and I saw many of you had already replied and said you were going to read it too. That gave me hope. Whatever the future holds, whatever our next step is towards right relations with our native...
Sorry, that was my fault.
Whatever the next step is towards right relations with our native and indigenous neighbors, none of us needs to face it alone. Together, we can face our history with honesty, humility, and love for the land and the peoples whose stories continue all around us.
Thank you, Chris. One of our handheld mics uses the same channel as the lavalier mic, and I didn't realize that was the one that Chris was holding. And we're getting a new sound system, or we've been putting in a new sound system, which will give us more channels. Yay! This is a difficult point in the year for many Unitarian Universalist churches, and I think particularly so here in New England, and particularly so here at FPC this year. This year, we're talking about a potential merger with another church, and that has us doing two things. One is taking a deep look at our own history, a history that is mixed up with the town history and the way things were before separation of church and state, and thus our church is tied to the removal of Native Americans from this land. And two, at this time, we're talking about our name and what our name means. From the way the word parish denotes that history to names for this area, such as Neshoba and Assabet, and what their meanings are. And throughout all of this, we're trying to build better relationships between this church and local Native American groups. And we have, of course, in this church, families people whose families are deeply tied to those early white settlers, as we call them, and as you just heard, and families whose history is even more intricately linked to the forcible removal of Native Americans, such as my own family history has in it, where my Landrum ancestor purchased land that he had a slave plantation on, but that land was purchased with money he received as a colonel in the militia that drove the Native Americans off that same land. So here we are in the season of Thanksgiving and the season of the National Day of Mourning. And it's worthwhile to mourn and to acknowledge that history. And it's also worthwhile to give thanks, to fill our lives with gratitude. My family is still one, even knowing our history and mourning it, that does celebrate Thanksgiving. And while we do so with knowledge and recognition of what has happened, we nonetheless spend the time together over the harvest table and centering family and thanks. The mythos of this holiday ties to this giving thanks to a story of Native Americans and white pilgrims coming together over a meal. And we know that story has some elements of truth and some hyperbolic whitewashing, and it denies and erases the violent history that follows. But at the same time, that message of coming together over a table, of breaking bread together and giving thanks, and having welcome is an older and more ancient message and a true religious imperative. In the Celtic tradition, for example, which some of my roots are in, there were laws written into the culture that you must provide hospitality to anyone who asks. You must provide food and board to stranger or friend. The story of the Irish hero Cuchulainn tells of how he was under a vow that he would lose his life if he broke, to take any hospitality when ordered. And he was also under a vow to not eat a certain meat of an animal that we would consider a pet. Once he went to a home and he was offered a meal of that pet meat. And he had to choose to either break his vow to always accept hospitality, or break his vow to not eat this meat. Either vow he broke would lead to his demise. But in the end, his choice was to always honor that sacred vow of hospitality, of accepting hospitality, just as the others had vowed to give hospitality. In the Bible, there are many stories that tell of the importance of hospitality and of providing welcome. It begins all the way back at the beginning in Genesis. In Genesis 18, 3 strangers come to Abraham and Sarah, and Abraham hurries to make them feel welcome. Sarah bakes bread. Abraham gets meat and milk and brings it to the strangers. And in this story, hospitality becomes a blessing, because as it turns out, the strangers were angels. And they give Abraham and Sarah the blessing that they will have a son. Over and over again in the Bible, actually, from Abraham and Sarah to Lot to the birth of Jesus, strangers bring blessings, and welcoming the stranger brings life and goodness. And you never know when the stranger is an angel in disguise. So we wanted to share some stories of welcome with you this holiday season, this time when welcome brings hardship and pain sometimes, but also beauty and blessing, and particularly share stories of welcome in our church, how providing welcome, no matter the cost, truly is a religious mandate, and how it has brought blessings to us all. So the first story I have to share with you is from Hector Constanzos. Hector, as it seems, realized he needed community. Churches were no longer a theological match for him, so he no longer held his born-again Christian beliefs he once held. But he thought, church is a place where I can find community. And the church where I'm likely to find a community that will be worth the theology is a church that is LGBTQ welcoming. And so he looked around for churches with rainbow flags. Now, this church did not have a rainbow flag at the time, but he started to hear from people that we were a diverse community that welcomed LGBTQ people, and that we also welcomed many theologies. And so despite the fact that we didn't have that rainbow symbol flying, he came here to see if we were what he was looking for. Hector describes coming for the first time saying this: "The first Sunday I walked into FPC, the sermon was based on Shakespeare and Star Trek. I thought that any church that can find wisdom and material other than the Bible is a place that could work for me. I was so pleasantly surprised over the next few months and few years as I learned just how welcoming Unitarian Universalism was to others and to questions as well. So we provided theological welcome, as well as a space that was LGBTQ welcoming that day and this day. And you know what we found out? Sometimes the visitors here are angels in disguise, right? We were provided with many more blessings for welcoming Hector than we provided Hector with in the end, I think. And this one person that we gave welcome to has welcomed so many more, and we've been blessed 100 times over. And that's the spirit of welcoming in this church, and how this religious mandate serves us as much as we serve the world. Thank you, gratitude, for all our angels who have found here a place of welcome and provided welcome to others. Please rise now in body and spirit and join in our next hymn, number 1010, We Give Thanks. Words will be up on your screen. They are also in your blue hymnals.
And now I'll share with you my story of welcome. In the summer of 2008, I initiated proceedings and got divorced. Once the divorce was finalized, very few people knew that it had happened. I felt it was a personal matter, and those that needed to know knew. Now, at this time, my family and extended family had attended the same church for well over 100 years. Now it's been like well over 150 years. Almost everyone in my family was baptized there, married there, and memorialized there. We had a family choir that sang at holidays and funerals. In the summers, when I would come up and visit my grandmother, my sister would play the piano, and I would stand in front of the congregation and sing my little heart out because the minister asked me to, and my grandmother told me that I better do it. Once I moved to the area, I became the church secretary. I taught Sunday school. I wrote curriculum for Vacation Bible School. I was in charge of the programs for children, youth, and young adults. I represented the church at regional events. I got married there, and 2 of my children were baptized there. This church knew me well, and yet after my divorce, I was shunned, as if I had caused some great harm to this church, as if I was some cruel stranger that they had never met. I was no longer shown kindness, and some even said that I no longer deserved their love. So I left that church, and I spent time visiting other churches with my 2 small children. I would walk in, I would introduce myself, I would introduce my children, and they would ask me something like this: "Is your spouse parking the car?" Will your spouse be joining us next week? Does your spouse work on Sundays? What can we do to encourage your spouse to attend with you? I would clarify that it was the three of us and only the three of us. Then I got a sideways glance, a slight tilt of the head, and the long drawn out, "Oh." I knew what that meant, and that would be the first and last time I visited that church. It was frustrating to have this happen over and over. I knew other one-parent families. Is this how they were treated? Were they always feeling judged and unwelcomed? On my first visit to a Unitarian Universalist church, I did what I usually did. I walked in, I introduced myself and my kids. The greeter welcomed me and asked if it was okay to make name tags for us because everyone wore them so that we could get to know each other. Then I waited for one of the questions about my spouse, but it didn't come. Later, I was asked how I enjoyed the service and was told they hoped to see me again. I continued to return, and not once did anyone ever ask me, is your spouse parking the car? Will your spouse be joining us next week? Does your spouse work on Sundays? Or what can we do to encourage your spouse to attend? My first day at FPC was one of the beer fest days. Reverend Cindy greeted me with the biggest, kindest, and warmest grin. She excitedly introduced me to the faces and names that all became one big happy blur. I spent the rest of that day with Sue Stewart and Emmeline. Sue was very funny and kind and a wonderful way to be brought into FPC family. And Sue continues to be very funny and very kind and a wonderful part of the FPC family for me. Now I want to share a story of welcome from Katie Weeks. My mom had just passed away in November of 1996. We had left the Lexington First Parish Church because it was too far to drive every Sunday, and several of the friends we had known had moved away. So we came to First Parish Stowe and Acton the first Sunday in January 1997. In those days, the first service of the year was usually a remembrance service. So of course, I started crying at the service. So who turned around to comfort me? But Susie Phoenix, who we knew from Star Island. And then, when the service was over, I dried my eyes, and we walked into Fellowship Hall, and Barbara Chkosky came right up to greet us and talk with us. Then Pat Soren came over to say hi. We knew her from the Sudbury Savor Yards. Is that right? We immediately felt like this was home, with so many people being there for us.
This church is blessed so much by all of the people who have come together to make this work possible. In the free church tradition, the church is supported by the voluntary generosity of our members and friends who choose to share with us. A small, really almost symbolic method of that is the passing of the plate. Although if you want to make it more than symbolic, go ahead. And we share our plate every month with a different agency that we've voted to support in the community as our way of giving back. So we give back half of our plate to different organizations that our members have nominated for us to support. This year, I feel like one of the most important ones I mean, they're all important, so I shouldn't say that. But one of the ones dearest to my heart right now, because of the numerous horrible acts going on in our community against in our nation against the transgender community, is the work we're doing with Pink Haven. And Pink Haven is an organization that is helping trans families across the U.S., particularly those that live in more repressive areas and who need to leave those areas or need to get life-affirming care for their family members to do so. So I invite you to give generously to Pink Haven and to support the work of this church. Thanks.
it's hard to resist the welcome of the pulpit right now. When we talk about welcome, we usually think of some of the more obvious moments. The greeting at the door, the first Sunday that someone tries us on for size, the choice to return, the choice to stay. These are important these are important moments, and they matter in the life of welcome, but welcome can mean a lot of things. And I want to talk about a different kind of welcome. So Rev Cindy talked a little bit about how Abraham and Sarah, had welcomed the three strangers. Abraham was known to stay at the edge of the door to the tent that he and Sarah had put together. It was open on all sides, you see. The particular day that was mentioned when Sarah and Abraham greeted the three angels, Abraham was actually in a conversation with God, talking with God, having a really great moment. And God was visiting Abraham because Abraham was not feeling very well after a certain procedure had just been done in his conversion. I'll let your imagination go somewhere with that. So he was sick. And visiting the sick is one of the most important acts of hospitality that we can do, to give aid to those who are ill. Even so, even while God was visiting Abraham, God was put on hold by Abraham to go help those three strangers. So welcome also lives in those tender places of one's life, the ones that arrive without warning. Shortly after Amy Osenar moved to Boxborough, she had an accident that broke her shoulder and took away the use of her right arm. Suddenly, everything ordinary became complicated. I'm guessing you've probably experienced that yourself when you're sick. The ordinary things may become a little bit too much. Perhaps getting kids to school or getting to medical appointments. The simplest parts of daily life can stretch into something difficult and exhausting. Amy told us she thinks it was her husband who lit a candle of support during worship, during joys and sorrows that Sunday. And from that one small gesture, that one ask of asking, this community responded immediately. Rides appeared. Help appeared. People stepped in to make sure the kids got where they needed to be. People made sure that she got to appointments. There was no hesitation, just a steady chorus of yes. That is a kind of welcome that comes from building relationships. The welcome that keeps saying yes every single time we have the opportunity to do so. It comes from being the sort of community that notices, that responds, that chooses to care without a second thought. It comes from a way of life that understands we all have seasons when we cannot and should not carry everything alone. What Amy experienced wasn't, to me, a charitable outcome. Charity was not given. In fact, to me, it's the very heart of kinship, of family. It's the kind of hospitality our stories try to teach us, the stories like Abraham and Sarah. The kind where we don't wait to decide whether someone is worthy of our care and our hospitality. We act because we recognize ourselves in one another. Take a look around. You have a group of people here who see you just as you are. We act because we know what it is to need help. We act because we belong to one another. What would it look like for you to look around this room right now? Do it if you can. I mean, I know I'm up here, but take a look around. It'll help your neck anyway. These are all people who belong to you and to whom you belong. We act because we belong to one another. This is what radical welcome looks like. It isn't just being at the door when people get here. It's opening our own lives up to the people that come into them. It's saying with our actions, you do not have to do this by yourself. You will have help to carry what is heavy. You are so a part of us, and we a part of you. And often, as in Amy's case, the person who receives help becomes the one who reminds the rest of us who we truly are. A community that shows up, a community that cares, a community that practices welcome as a way of living. And so, may we keep choosing this way of radical welcome. May we keep choosing one another. And may our welcome continue to reach far beyond the threshold of the heart of our shared life together at FPC. I'd like to invite Anne up to lead our joys and sorrows.
Good morning. My name is Anne Sadler, and I am one of a team of lay ministers in the church, and we help the Reverend Cindy with pastoral care. If you need to contact us, there is an email address in your morning bulletin. And I'd like to remind everybody this morning that the children are here as part of our service, and so to make sure that what you're saying is appropriate.
Our words for prayer meditation this morning come from Andre Moll, titled All That We Share is Sacred. And this blessing was written in honor of two Unitarians, Martha and Wade. It's off? You're right, it's off? These words are by Andre Moll, titled All That We Share is Sacred, and were written in honor of two Unitarians, Martha and Wade Still Sharp, who during World War II dared to risk their own comfort in order to save lives of those in desperate need. As we gather together, may we remember, when you share with me what is most important with you, that is where listening begins. When I show you that I hear you, when I say your life matters, that is where compassion begins. When I open the door to greet you, that is where hospitality begins. When I venture out to bring you shelter, that is where love begins. When we experience the full presence of each other because of our shared humanity, because of our differences, that is where holy gratitude begins. May this space be a table that is not complete until all are welcome. May this table be a space of beauty where together we create a series of miracles and where we all share that which is sacred. May it be so. Blessed be. Amen. Let's hold together a moment of silence. Ashe, amen, blessed be. Our closing hymn is We Shall Be Known. We were having a hard time deciding what song closes out this service. And then I turned to Chris and I said, oh, I know, our song. We sing this a lot in staff meetings to each other when times are hard, when we need an uplift. And so we thought this is the song for this community today. We Shall Be Known. Please rise in body or in spirit.
We shall be known by the company we keep, by the ones who circle round to tend these fires. We shall be known by the ones who sow and reap the seeds of change of life from deep within the earth.
Couple quick announcements before I invite Rayla up to give our words of benediction. First, our pianist Trevor had to step out due to mild injury, an issue, and so send your love and blessings to him. And second announcement for newcomers today, we have a special time of question and answer with Minister Newcomer Coffee across the hall in the parlor, which is a little bit in upheaval because of window construction we had going on, but there are still chairs available. So go down, grab your coffee if you want one, and bring it back up and join me for time there. And now, Rayla.
Until we meet again, may all our hours together be blessed as this one has been, by open-hearted sharing, learning from one another, and making beautiful harmonies together. And may we greet everyone we encounter with the same acceptance and grateful kinship until we meet again. Be blessed.